Hi guys, this is Daryl and welcome back to Book Odyssey. Today I'm going to be reviewing How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. It's strange how the discovery of an ancient girl in Siberia and viruses we've never encountered before can both redefine what we know about being human and at the same time threaten our humanity. In 2030, a grieving archaeologist arrives in the Arctic Circle to continue the work of his recently deceased daughter at the Batagaya crater, where researchers are studying long-buried secrets now revealed in the melting permafrost, including the perfectly preserved remains of a girl who appears to have died of an ancient virus. Once unleashed, the Arctic plague will reshape life on Earth for generations to come, quickly traversing the globe, forcing humanity to devise a myriad of moving and inventive ways to embrace possibility in the face of tragedy. In a theme park designed for terminally ill children, a cynical employee falls in love with a mother desperate to hold on to her infected son. A heartbroken scientist searching for a cure finds a second chance at fatherhood when one of his test subjects, a pig, develops the capacity for human speech. A widowed painter and her teenage granddaughter embark on a cosmic quest to locate a new home planet. From funerary skyscrapers to hotels for the dead to interstellar starships, Sequoia Nagamatsu takes readers on a journey spanning continents, centuries and even celestial bodies to tell a story about the resilience of the human spirit, our infinite capacity to dream, and the connective threads that tie us all together in the universe. Pitched by the publisher HarperCollins as being for fans of Cloud Atlas and Stations 11, it says How High We Go in the Dark is a spellbinding and profoundly prescient debut, a daring and deeply heartfelt work of mind-bending imagination from a singular new voice. If you watch my videos often, you'll know that Cloud Atlas is a favourite of mine, so as you might imagine, I got excited about this. In fact, I have that excitement on camera from my Smash or Pass 2022 video. For fans of Cloud Atlas and Station 11, I'm a big fan of Cloud Atlas. At least they didn't say Cloud Atlas meets Station 11. Props for that. Hell yeah, Smash! This is right up my sci-fi street. Definitely Smash. Unfortunately, I will be upfront and say I had a few major issues with this book, which I go into throughout the video, but the largest of which, and one that's quite a big one, is that I found it a pretty hard slog to get through, but I'll talk about why. First, let's look at some of the concepts and themes which I did enjoy, but for a major flaw. After school, she'd study the news, comb the internet for disasters, wars, and hate and injustice, write it all down in these colour-coded journals. Once I asked her what she was doing, and she said she was just trying to keep track of it all, because it didn't seem like anybody else noticed or cared that we kept making the same mistakes. Some of the concepts in the story were pretty out there, and I admit I do love an out there concept. I won't go into them too much here for spoiler reasons, but a few of the notable ones revolve around how society reacts to the release of a deadly pandemic that has been dormant in permafrost, released as a result of global warming temperatures. A couple of the really memorable moments were the chapters around a telepathic pig and a micro black hole buried in a character's head. Yes, I said head. If you're anything like me, you'll be thinking, what the frack? And you'll instantly want to know more. Which brings me onto the flaw in these concepts. Nagamatsu skims over them to instead focus on the inner lives of his characters. Usually this is something I wouldn't critique the author for, but in this case I found the characters weren't enough to hold my interest. What I was interested in exploring, the story never focused on. Which leads me onto a few issues I had with the characters and the writing. It is difficult to comprehend just how far you've come, and I wonder if, apart from our tiny blue planet, we have much in common at all anymore. The main issues I had with this story was that firstly, it essentially wasn't one story. Each chapter introduces a new character, making it more of a series of short stories linked in a few ways. And that is where the tenuous comparison to Cloud Atlas begins and ends. Secondly, it didn't have much in the way of plot. I know a lot of literary and contemporary writers out there wouldn't deign to concern themselves with something so pedestrian as plot, but I love plot, and for me it was sorely missing. What this lack of plot and fractured approach meant was that it was all very repetitive and one note, and to be honest, that one note was a depressing note. What it was missing was a variance in tone and pace. There were no high moments, no low moments, no intense action, no fast points or slow points. It was all sort of a melancholy meandering from beginning to end, taking us through the lives of characters I didn't care about. Now, I realise these are all pretty negative comments, so I just want to caveat them a little. One of the main reasons I didn't enjoy this book because it wasn't what I expected. It's less sci-fi and more literary fiction with a speculative edge. The writing style is very contemporary, a sparse style where everything is utilitarian and it doesn't attempt to do anything like world building other than through the point of view of the characters. As a collection of short stories, it was well written in terms of prose. I don't have to have enjoyed it to realise that and give it credit for what was in places beautifully written prose. I think I have a clear indication of what Nagamatsu was trying to attempt when writing this, and I think to a large extent it was successful. However, it just wasn't for me. I don't think it was helped that it was compared to Cloud Atlas, which is a favourite of mine and such an unusual masterwork of fiction that to make this association almost dooms it to failure because it simply doesn't compare. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the spoiler part of the video to discuss some of these issues in greater detail. If you don't want to watch this part, you can skip ahead to the time at the bottom of the screen for my summary and star rating. To be honest, it's been a tough one to review because on the one hand I genuinely see the positives, whereas some of the books that I don't get on with I literally don't have a clue how they got published. But on the other hand, what I like and don't like are a big part of how I review books. Now, like I said earlier, I found a lot of the book to be really hard going, but there were a few parts where I actually enjoyed it more. This is where it got a bit more into the sci-fi about 2/3 of the way in. Side note, I hate not finishing books. It makes me feel like I've failed as a reader, so a book has to be pretty shoddily written for me to not finish it. Plus, I spend good money buying books, so I'm gonna fracking well finish them if I can. But anyway, about 2/3 of the way in, we get to the part where an interstellar ship has been built to take volunteers off to find a new home among the stars. So forgetting the fact that just taking off into space randomly searching for habitable planets is both stupid and insane, I did enjoy this, and I thought, finally, we've left all of those morose characters behind and we're getting somewhere. But then in the next chapter, we are back on Earth again, and some guy was writing notes to his neighbours about some kind of party he was throwing. So no, more morose ambling from dull characters. Don't get me wrong though, I love a good depressing book. I've read The Road for frack's sake. But you need some kind of high in order to feel the lows, and there were zero highs in this book. So for me, unfortunately, the execution didn't live up to the ambition. There's also a very jaded part of me that wonders if one of the reasons this book was published was because of the pandemic, although it was apparently written pre-COVID, and also the recent re-emergence of Sci-Fi, which I thought and hoped had died a death 5 years ago. So, moving on from my mini rant, the ending. Well, it did its job of tying everything together. The problem was that it felt as though it was tagged onto the end, simply to call it a novel rather than what it really was, a collection of short stories. How High We Go in the Dark has a scope far beyond what was delivered, in my opinion. The issues with its meandering pace, its relentlessly morose characters, and its barely there plot, unfortunately for me, far outweigh the clear poetic skill Nagamatsu has achieved in his prose, and the promising yet largely unexplored concepts. More of a collection of short stories than a novel, this work of speculative fiction suffers from a serious repetition problem, from the similarity in its numerous yet less than engaging characters to its one-note melancholy tone, its ambling pace, and its monotonous style, all of which lead us towards a flat ending that felt forced and tagged on. While I appreciate the ambition, the execution was sadly lacking. So with this in mind, I gave How High We Go in the Dark 2 stars out of 5. Thanks for watching guys, I'd love to get your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, happy reading.